Hi, welcome to part two of The Films That Made Me, landmarks in my understanding and appreciation of cinema. I left you last time with Blade Runner. The story now picks up with a very odd and much neglected film, The Belly of an Architect by Peter Greenaway. Now, the reason why I picked this film out, I saw this film when I was about 16 years of age with my dad. We were watching it on Channel 4. If you've ever seen the film, it starts off with a very sweaty and fat Brian Dennehy having sex on a train. Not the kind of film you want to watch with your dad. But anyway, there we are. And the reason I pick it out is because I realise now this was the first art film I ever saw. It introduced me to a whole new way of thinking about film, away from narrative, away from story, away from genre, into a very personal and idiosyncratic way of using movies. And it stunned me. From the very opening credits, I mean, obviously the use of sex and nudity, but what also impressed me was the use of music, the brilliant score by Wim Mertens, sort of minimalist Michael Nyman style score, the photography of Rome, the editing, Peter Greenaway's very structured shots, all these symmetrical shots like a painting, the discussion of architecture, allied with a discussion of bellies and physiognomy and cancer, and the sort of the gut part of life. It absolutely blew me sideways, and I realised that this was something that I liked and I wanted to investigate more. So while this is not a highly regarded film in many circles, though actually I still hold a candle for it. I love this movie. This was a crucial movie for me because it introduced me to art cinema. Now, this led me to wanting to look at films that were not in the English language. And one night I stayed up at home, it was BBC Two, and they were showing a film that I best illustrate with this little picture, The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman. It was the first foreign language art film I chose to watch on my own for my own pleasure. If you don't know The Seventh Seal, I don't know why you wouldn't, it is an extraordinarily strange film. It's a classic of cinema, so we're not used to seeing it as being strange. It's also been taken the piss out of billions of times, hasn't it? You know, Bill and Ted's Journey and all that sort of stuff. You know, a knight playing chess with death and all that. But I had never seen anything like this before. It was the first European art film I'd ever seen. And it blew my mind. I thought this was incredible. I never realised you could have a film like this. A sort of medieval morality play. You know, beautifully shot and strange and modern. A film that's really about the modern world and its fear of the nuclear catastrophe and the breakdown of society, but done, you know, through medieval tropes with jesters and death in this black cloak and white face turning up. I just thought it was incredible. I didn't realise cinema could be like this. What I now realise actually is that the first foreign language film I ever saw was not The Seventh Seal. It was this little friend, Battleship Potemkin, about the first uprising of the navy and the workers in Odessa, of course. Funny how things come around, isn't it? Now, the reason this was the first film I saw it unconsciously. I had this history teacher, and he was very lazy. He was a great teacher, but he was very lazy. So as a teacher's moments in history, he just put on film or a TV series. And so for the Russian Revolution, he put on Battleship Potemkin, which actually isn't even about the revolution, actually. It's about 1905. And I didn't realise it was a film. I thought it was a documentary. I thought it was documentary footage of the uprising. And I was going, oh my God, look at that poor baby. Oh my God, look at that woman with her glasses. Oh my God, what are these? Like an idiot. I was quite young at the time. So I realised now that that was actually the first foreign language film I ever saw. But Seventh Seal was the first one I watched voluntarily, and it was massive for me. It was like a tidal wave swept over me. I thought it was an incredible film. I watched it again last year, worried that now as an older person I might see through it and think it was a bit naff. You know what? It was even better than when I saw it as a teenager. It is a magnificent film. It stands up, and it's still one of the great classics of world cinema. So I left school and I went to university, and for some peculiar reason I stopped watching films. I studied literature at university, And for about 4 years, I just immersed myself in books from every country, every literature. And I didn't watch many films. I joined the Film Society at university, but I very seldom went. I don't know why. Even though I just discovered Bergman, I discovered art cinema, but I didn't really follow it up. And then I left university and I got a job in London. And I was doing the old tourist bit in London, and I discovered the National Film Theatre for £12. I think it was £12 a year. It may have been 24, but I think for something like that, you could become a member. You got a program every month through the door, and there was this cavalcade of classics, cult movies, foreign art house films, experimental films, all to be seen on the big screen. And just like it was like someone flicked a switch in my back, and I became a cinephile. And I became obsessed with film. The way that I'd been obsessed with literature at university, and I'd read everything I could get my hands on. Now I wanted to watch every film I could get my hands on and learn about film. And buying film books became a vice. But the BFI, the National Film Theatre as it was then, that was my mecca, that was my home. And so I'm going to tell you about the first film I ever saw there, which was the start of my cinephile journey. And it's a rather odd start. Straw Dogs. Sam Peckinpah, they were running a Sam Peckinpah season. And this was the first film I ever saw. It was the first step on my cinephile journey. A weird first step, let's be honest. At that time, I was very excited about extreme cinema. There was a lot of films that had been banned in Britain, either at the cinema or on television. This was banned on television in the 70s. Things like Clockwork Orange, Straw Dogs, Eichner Corridor, Salo by Pasolini, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And in the 90s, there was a loosening of the censorship, and I lapped these films up. I loved them. And this was the first one I saw. Straw Dogs remains one of the most repellent and consistently ugly and nasty films ever made. I'm going to say something perhaps a bit controversial. It is also quite brilliant. It's almost as if, to give a really stupid analogy, right, it's like that thug down the road who supports BNP, right, and has got sort of slightly misogynistic, racist views, and who you look down on, in your nice middle-class house with your nice middle-class liberal views. He's a better filmmaker than you are, and he can express himself better than you. That's Straw Dogs. That's what Straw Dogs feels like to watch. You come out of it feeling like, that feeling you have like when Coke, after you've had a glass of Coke, it was tasty, but it covers your teeth. You feel dirty. But God, it's a brilliant piece of filmmaking. It's really... I watched it again a year ago, after nearly 30 years. What a sustained piece of filmmaking it is. And it's clearly made by someone intelligent. It's like someone intelligent making a film from the pigsty, It's massively hated. I'm surprised it hasn't been banned again, because it has the famous sequence where Susan George is raped twice, and she appears to enjoy it. So it's a much hated film amongst feminists, and quite understandably so. And it offers a very bleak, brute idea of humanity and sexuality. But look at how it starts, with a boy on top of a gravestone looking up rebelliously at a church spire. That's how it starts. An extraordinary image. And the siege at the end at the farm, it's sustained over about 40 minutes. It's one of the most brilliantly sustained pieces of tense filmmaking in the history of film. Say what you like about this film, but you cannot dismiss it. And so it stuck with me as the first part of my cinephile journey as an adult. I'd say try it again if you can stomach it. Okay, that's the end of part 2 of my landmark films, and I'll join you again soon.